Julian Assange is moments away from being back on Australian soil. Today, a US court officially accepted his plea deal, and with time served, he was officially free. Here is how it all unfolded.
Today is a historic day. Finally, after 14 years of legal battles, Julian Assange can go home a free man. There has been a global movement behind Julian to protect free speech, and it is because of that global movement of support that today's outcome is possible.
We all deserve to know the truth about what goes on in this world, and I think he was very brave.
I want to thank our Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, for his statesmanship, his principled leadership and his diplomacy, which made this outcome possible.
This outcome has been the product of careful, patient and determined work I am very proud of.
Today he pleaded guilty to an offence for having published information in the public interest, for which he's won journalism awards the world over and been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize every year for the past decade.
The judge told Mr. Assange that it was reasonable to accept the 62 months already spent in a UK prison as his sentence, meaning he will serve no further time.
It's not an outright victory for him, and it's not an outright victory for journalists.
Chilling effect is the United States pursuing journalism as a crime.
Regardless of what this means for Mr. Assange, it's terrible for the United States. This prosecution should not have happened.
Today, on US territory, a precedent was set for the charging and conviction of a journalist for doing their job.
Journalism is not a crime. He is an innocent man.
Julian Assange has left Saipan and is on his way to Canberra.
I have no idea what Assange will do now. I'm sure he'll want a break from living in solitary confinement and to get to know his children better.
I hope he does ordinary things. I hope he takes the kids for a walk along the beach in winter and feels the cold sand run up through his toes, or watch the wattle bloom.
When we met, he was under house arrest. It will be the first time that I get to see him as a fully free man.
I hope that the fact that we've been able to free Julian Assange today against all the odds and against one of the most powerful governments in the world will give hope to all journalists and publishers who are imprisoned around the world. And we encourage everyone who stood to fight for Julian to continue that fight for him and for all of those others in the hope that we can secure their freedom too.
We're live from the lands of the Kulin Nation. Kathy Lette is a good friend of Julian Assange as well as us, and she joins us now. Kathy, as we speak to you, Julian is moments away from touching down on Australian soil. As someone who's been supporting him for years, how do you feel?
Well, we knew it was in the wind, but we didn't know exactly what was going to happen. So I didn't hear until I was listening to the news yesterday and heard he was on the plane, and I was as elated as that aeroplane that he's finally got out, because it's been such psychological torture what he's been put through. So, I'm hoping he's boomeranging back to Botany Bay. I hope he's going to be welcomed with open arms, slices of pavlova, veggie on toast, Tim Tams, whatever. And he will become, a hero in Australia. I think we'll have to call him the creme de la creme, the creme de la criminal. So, I think he's going to become a national treasure for sure.
Kathy, it's been such a long time in incarceration for Julian, but he actually stayed with you in London. I mean, to be clear, we're not counting that as part of the incarceration. But what was he like as a house guest?
I mean, let me just say, he's an intriguing and fascinating and brilliant house guest and dinner party guest, but not domesticated. I think giving a room a sweeping glance is the closest he ever came to housework. I got to know him so well, and we became such good friends that when The Simpsons were doing their 500th episode, they wanted to star Julian, and Julian asked me would I write his dialogue for the show, which I did, which was as a writer, there's no higher accolade than getting your name in the Simpsons credits. Although I got to tell you guys, they cut my favourite line. I had quite a good line I thought about Julian when he's on the run with Homer and Marge, and he cooks a barbecue, and Marge is in love with the marinade, and she asks him for the recipe, to which he replies, "I'm sorry, but I never reveal my sources."
Very good.
Oh, come on, it wasn't bad. Come on.
That's cruel. That should have stayed, Kathy. You visited Julian frequently over the years. How did he cope in prison?
it was very hard to see him in prison, but we went to see him in the embassy regularly when he took refuge at the Ecuadorian embassy. To keep his spirits up. It was a very dark, constricted little flat, and he just had a room at the back. I would go over, instead of taking the usual bottle of champagne, I would take my bubbly friends to give him a laugh. And so I took, Ruby Wax, who's a comedian in Britain, American comedian. I took Pamela Stevenson. I took Jane Turner, Kath and Kim, and our job was to just give him a little bit of quiplash. And, I always say that these favourite women of mine have the black belt in tongue fu and they shoot from the lip. So our job was just to cheer him up, which I think we did on a regular basis. But it's been a hideous ordeal, and it really has been psychological torture. And we were so worried about him in Belmarsh prison. We were worried about his mental health, and we thought he might have to be put on a suicide watch. If they'd succeeded in taking him to America, he would have just disappeared into an American supermax prison. We never would have heard from him again.
Well, Kathy, it has been some fight, but he's out now. How do you think he's going to go readjusting to life?
It's going to be a huge adjustment, of course, and he's just got to now get to know his kids without looking at them through a glass wall or through some bars. So I think we've got to give him space to be a dad. We've got to give them time to be husband and wife in a normal situation. And this is not his last chapter. I mean, I'm very interested to see what Julian Assange does next, because he's one of our marvellous Aussie mavericks, and aren't we lucky to have him?
What an extraordinary transition it's going to be, Kathy. Thank you very much for speaking so warmly.
Oh, it's lovely to see you guys. I have to have a celebratory slice of veggie on toast myself.
Yeah.